Hello to everyone for joining us today and everyone who is watching this afterwards. Thank you for being a Lake Lanier Association member and supporting our efforts for a clean, full, and safe lake. I'm Jennifer Flowers. I'm Lake Lanier Association's Executive Director, and today we are going to be discussing dock maintenance and common issues seen during the permit renewal process. So we have a great lineup of speakers. We have Craig Sowers from the Corps of Engineers, Kyle Davis from Marine Specialties, Patrick Morrissey from Southeastern Dock Supply. We have Chris Fall from Lighthouse Marine and Matt Fuller from Boat Dock Works. We also want to introduce Victoria Clevenger, who is our Communications and Membership Coordinator, sitting there with Matt. Thank you for everything that she does and helps with coordinating all of these webinars and emails and great events. Feel free to use the question and answer function on your screen to ask us questions throughout the presentations. Use the question and answer and not the chat function. It's easier for us to be looking at one thing versus two different ways and avenues for people to ask questions. We will have 15 minutes at the end that is going to be question and answers for the panel. So you can ask things throughout to the specific speakers that we will either answer during that time period, or we will wait and do at the end when we have the entire panel up to answer those questions. So if we don't answer it as we go through it, there is a reason why. We'll get back to it. We are going to avoid those questions that are super specific, and we can try to get you an answer for that after the fact. But without further ado, I'm going to introduce Craig Sowers. Craig has been with the Corps of Engineers for 19 years in his current position as a supervisory natural resource specialist since August of 2020. Applaud you for starting this new job almost a year ago in a pandemic. I've worked closely with Craig over this past year, and he's done great things already. He brings a wealth of knowledge, and he's going to be joining us and just sharing the biggest issues seen throughout the permitting and inspections and how we can all avoid them. And I've given him the impossible task of cramming it into the next 15 minutes. So if anyone misses anything, we are going to be sending the recording out afterwards. Barring any technical difficulties, you should get it in your inboxes tomorrow. So be looking for that. So thank you, Craig. And I know at the end, we'll have a lot of questions for you. So thank you.
Okay. All right. Well, good afternoon, everybody. Thank you, Jennifer. Thank you to everyone with the Lake Lanier Association. I appreciate this opportunity to speak with you all today and share this information. I do hope that it is productive for everyone listening. I know it is a great opportunity for us to share this information. So in the spirit of dock maintenance, we don't do the maintenance part of it, but we do a lot of the inspections on the docks that eventually lead to some of this maintenance. So I wanted the opportunity to talk today about some of the common issues that we see when we're doing these inspections. And hopefully those listening today find this productive and you can avoid some of these common pitfalls. So I have a PowerPoint that's going to help jog my memory of these common items that I wanted to touch on today. So I'm going to turn that on now, and then I'll go through each of these things in due course here. All right. Okay. So before we get started on all of the various individual items I wanted to go over, I wanted to touch on why we even do inspections at all. What is the Corps' intention? And it really boils down to two foundational topics: protecting people and protecting our resources. The Corps of Engineers encourages public use of the great resource that we have. We just want it to be safe, and we want the resource, the lake and the shoreline surrounding the lake, we want that to be there for future generations to enjoy. Now, you may hear people boil that down to we're checking the rules, we're following the guidelines, we're looking at the regulations. But really the foundation behind all of those rules and regulations is those two pieces, protecting people and protecting our resources. Real quick, I wanted to mention, when do we come out and do inspections? When the permits renew, that's on a 5-year cycle. We'll do an inspection every time the ownership of a dock changes. We'll come out anytime someone requests new or additional facilities, or if there's just a problem that is going on that someone needs to run by a ranger and ask for some recommendations. So I wanted to just touch on some common things. I mean, there are thousands of things that could come up when we do one of these inspections, but there are some common ones that we encounter most often. And I wanted to go over those today just as a way to bring some attention to them, and hopefully we can avoid these and make everything easier for you all and for us on our end. So the first one is just structural safety. This really just boils down to, if you or your neighbor look at a dock and say, I don't want to walk on that, I don't think it's safe, then that is something that we're going to note in one of our inspections. So first, we're going to look here at the structural safety. Is there any missing flotation? Is it sufficient for the task of supporting the dock? What about the decking? Is there anything missing? Is it broken? Does it need to be replaced? And then maybe a little harder to see in this picture, right down here, we're going to look at the frame of the dock to the best of our ability. Is it bent? Is it broken? And again, we're looking for safety here. Is it safe to use for the intended purpose? The next one, we're going to look at the dock walkways. I did fail to mention here, I don't want to just run through a bunch of rules and regulations for everybody, but I did try to reference them for you. So hopefully you can see them here as I go through them. But I'll try just to not read the rule to you. Dock walkways are an important piece of the dock. Our requirement is that they cannot be less than 4 feet in width. That is for everyone's safety. But we have older docks that sometimes have walkways that are smaller than that, narrower than that. And so when we have those situations, we do require that a handrail be installed on that narrow walkway for safety. So if you have an old enclosed dock like what you're seeing in this picture, we would just ask for a handrail to be installed along the wall, just as something that people can hold on to as they're walking down that walkway or stepping on and off of the boat. One issue that has come up more recently about walkways has been narrower walkways on new construction. So the rules say you cannot have a walkway less than 4 feet in width for safety. But as you can see in this picture, maybe it's hard to tell, this middle finger here on this dock is only 2 feet wide. We do authorize this as long as that walkway is permanently blocked off. And so the next slide, you can see a little schematic diagram. And even so, this is what we would see from the permittee of submitting to the Corps. This is the plan of what we want to build or have built. And you can see this middle finger here is labeled not a walkway. And we can permit it that way, but we ask for it to be permanently blocked off. So back here, the back of this slip would need to be some type of railing system or something to permanently block this so that people do not use it as a walkway. So not to get into the semantics of it, but if it were a walkway, it would have to be 4 feet wide. So we're not calling it a walkway. It needs to be permanently blocked off. Dock roofs. This is always a big question that we get from the public. Can my dock have a roof or a party deck, or we call it a sun deck? Yes, roofs can be constructed to allow an upper sun deck. However, a second level roof cannot be constructed. So we're beginning to see a lot of these across the lake where people have installed pergolas or some type of a sail shade up there. And in our eyes, that is a second level roof, which is not allowed. Also, we commonly see this during inspections, openings in the upper level railing or a jump gate that what we call it. So if you have a second level roof that is accessible, a party deck, sun deck, it is required to have a rail system around the entire perimeter of that deck. So you can see here, this rail system incorporates a bench, and that's fine, but they've cut out this opening here to jump from it. So we do not allow these openings. The more common thing that we would see is a gate. It's actually a violation of Title 36 CFR, which governs all of public use for all lakes that the Corps of Engineers manages across the nation. Not jumping from any trees or structures to include docks is a violation. So we, in dock permitting, do not want to encourage that. So we do not allow gates or openings that would encourage that use. Dock anchoring. This is pretty common, found as well, where someone would tie their anchor cables off to a tree. That will eventually kill the tree, and we want to protect the trees and all of our resources, and you all probably don't want a dead tree right there next to your dock where it could fall and hit it. So we ask that these anchor cables go back to some sort of metal or wooden post or a screw auger that is put into the ground to properly anchor it. So we ask that it not be anchored to trees. Personal watercraft lift or a port, we do allow for up to two to be installed along the outside of the dock. In this picture, you can see, I think you can kind of see they have three. So that we would ask that one be removed in this scenario. Sort of the benefit that I think we have in this is that when we're measuring for upgrades to docks and we require that 50 foot of spacing, we do not take these personal watercraft lifts into account when we're measuring that spacing. So you can have them on the outside of the slip, but you can only have two. Dock boxes. This goes back to what is the dock permitted for? And in one of them is the mooring of the boat, and the other one is for storage of gear essential to the operation of a vessel. So in this picture on the left, you can see there is 1, 2, 3, 4 dock boxes here on this dock. Not all of that gear is essential to the operation of the vessel. So we have a limit on the dock boxes, and this is somewhat of a recent change, say last 5, 6 years, that it is limited to one storage box. We do not want that box to encumber or interfere with the walkway space, and it may not exceed beyond the footprint of the dock. So you'll hear people say it cannot be cantilevered over the water. Well, the rule behind that is it cannot exceed the footprint of the dock. So if that cantilever causes it to be bigger than what you're authorized for, then it cannot be cantilevered over the water. More storage things. We get a lot of fuel cans stored on docks, and it's okay to carry a can down and fuel the boat. You just can't store it there. And actually, the rules say left unattended. So you can see in this picture, it's been cabled to the chairs and the post here. So you know that that's been there for a while or intended to be there for a while. So we ask that anything that is harmful to the environment or flammable not be stored on the dock. Also in this other picture, we would like for the walkways to be free and clear so they don't cause any trip hazards. So just not cluttered. I mean, you can see these paddle boards, I think over here on this walkway, practically block the whole walkway. Um, it's just unsafe to navigate or to walk around obstructions when they're in the walkway. Dock flotation, encapsulated foam has been a requirement for a long time. I think this predates my career with the Corps, but I think it came into a requirement in the 80s. Unfortunately, or fortunately, depends on which side of the coin you're on, there was a statement when this encapsulated foam became a requirement that allowed for existing flotation to remain as long as it had not deteriorated or still was serviceable. However, you can maybe see in this picture, this float styrofoam is starting to come apart. And so that is something that we would ask to be replaced with encapsulated foam. We get a lot of questions about just personal items that can be stored on the dock. And really personal items go back to the root behind it is that the Corps does not allow for the dock or a boat attached to the dock to be used as habitable space. It cannot be your residence. And then one step further, the public cannot do anything that gives the appearance of converting public property to private use. So that is the background behind a lot of when we ask for personal items to be removed. I can go through a whole list here of things and we can debate the eaches of, well, does this mean habitation or does it not? But the Corps has taken a pretty strict stance about what types of things imply habitation. So you can have outdoor patio type furniture, but you cannot have indoor furniture. You can read the whole list of other things there. But decorative items, what's the word I'm looking for? Decorative lights, signs, anything like that, we do not allow on the dock. And it's more of a, I get when I was putting this together, I had the word utilitarian came to my mind, that the permit is for mooring of a vessel, not for the storage of all your personal items. Jennifer, how am I doing on time? Do you want me to go on and talk about replacement of docks, or you want me to stop?
You have a few more minutes.
Okay. All right. So I know there's a lot of questions about replacing docks, and the bottom line answer for me is always contact your area ranger. That's what they're there for, to help answer any questions, to help guide you on the process. So the best advice I have is please call your area ranger and talk to them about your specific situation. Any replacement facility is required to comply with the current shoreline management plan. If you're changing the dock size, you do have to have it permitted. So that requires new dock plans and a new permit. If you're keeping the same dock size, you just have to submit new dock plans. So we want the opportunity to review what is being installed, but if it's staying the same size, it doesn't actually require a permitting action. And then dock disposal, we do have a pretty basic form that you can fill out and turn back into us that really captures um, what happened with that old dock. Who got it? What were they doing with it? And where did it go? So you can get that form from the area ranger when you're talking to them about the replacement process. Real quick, here's an example of the permit. That's really, really grainy on my view, but I wanted to point out two things. When you meet with the ranger, they're going to make a recommendation of what's going to fit in that site based on the site conditions. And then we're going to send you this form for you to sign right here in this highlighted section. But it is not authorized to be installed until the Corps signs it down here in this second blank. So you're going to sign it here, mail it back to us. We're going to sign it back down here, mail it back to you, and then you have your approved dock permit, which you can give to any of the dock builders. And at that point, you have the permission from the Corps to install the dock on the lake. Grandfathered facilities was one thing that was mentioned that we might want to touch on briefly. Always recommend that people not assume something is grandfathered just because it's been there a long time. We run into a lot of things that are unauthorized, that were never permitted. And if it was never permitted, it's not grandfathered. So always contact your area ranger to see, talk to them about what you're wanting to do. Again, anything that you replace is required to comply with the current shoreline plan. One sort of misnomer or bad information from the Corps, who knows how this started, but I did want to take the opportunity to say a grandfathered facility can be sold and relocated to a new location on the lake, provided these, I guess these they're two requirements. The site conditions of the receiving location have to qualify. So if it's a large grandfathered facility and it's a very tight area where it may be going, we're not going to authorize that. Not because it's grandfathered, but because of the site conditions don't meet it. So if you do own a grandfathered facility and you're looking to sell it, the receiving person looking to buy it needs to coordinate with the Corps and get permitted for it before they can receive it from you and move it to their location. It does also have to be in good condition. I recognize these are old, but it has to be still usable. If that facility has run the end of its usable life, then it needs to be disposed of and replaced with the current structure, not just move something dilapidated and unsafe to a new location. And again, use the dock disposal form. And I think that is it, except for one plug. Go Braves.
Thank you, Craig, very much. That was extremely informative and gave us a lot of information, and we really do appreciate it. I had a couple questions I was going to go ahead and ask before we get into our next speakers. Can boats extend beyond the end of the dock? And how far, if they can, how far can they extend?
They can. The shoreline plan speaks to is the dock structurally capable of safely mooring the boat? And does the boat then create a navigation hazard? So to answer that question is really, we have to look at each individual case, and it is a professional judgment, but of the Corps and conversation with the dock owner about, is that structurally safe there, and does it block navigation?
Okay, I think I'm going to hold the rest of the questions until the end. We did have some questions about enclosed docks and getting those, transferred, and we can talk about that at the end.
Okay, sure.
Thank you, Craig. I really do
All right,
appreciate
thank
it.
you.
So next up, we have Kyle with Kyle Davis with Marine Specialties. So Kyle is the general manager and has been in the industry for 10 years. Thank you for joining us today, Kyle.
Thank you, Jennifer, and thank you, Craig, for all of that information and putting on that very nice slideshow. Good job with that, and yes, go Brave. So, thank you, Jennifer, also for putting this together. So, I'm with Marine Specialties, marine construction. We do a little bit of everything, in the marine construction business, from building new docks to dock repairs, boat lifts, a little bit of everything. And so, the topic today, obviously, is boat docks and maintenance items, things that we can do to, prevent issues, safety concerns, that kind of stuff. So the topic I really wanted to touch on today is dock anchoring. And it's a pretty big topic, and I think it's one of the more important topics when it comes to the maintenance end on boat docks. There's several different types of anchoring, and there's always a better way to do the anchoring depending on where the dock is located on the lake. Our lake is very diverse as far as you can be in 3 miles of open water, and then 2 minutes later, you could have a dock, just around the corner that's in the back of the cove that sees little to no action from waves or wind at all. And so we always look at these things when we try to determine what is the best anchoring for a dock. So when it comes to anchoring a dock, everybody, if you've been on the lake, you've seen docks that have the spud poles, what we call spud poles, anchor poles, piles, whatever you want to call them, pole and sleeve. And then you also have cables to shore. It's a pretty good mix, 50-50 of what you see out there. My best recommendation on anchoring, if you can, is to double it up with the poles and the cables. And to my knowledge, it's always been approved by the Corps to have both, no matter the area you're in. And so when we're talking about Lake Lanier, it's different on other lakes. And so poles and cables both, the redundant system, you cannot go wrong. The pole anchoring, you'll see anywhere from 3-inch to 4-inch up to 5-inch poles. It is to my knowledge that you're only allowed to have 2 poles per dock, and those are to be on the shore side of the dock. And then you can have your cables ashore. You can also double up your cables, as far as, if you have cables only, you can do 2 cables on each side of the dock. Just, again, a redundant system, kind of a fail-safe system. So if one does fail, you've got something there to back it up. When it comes to the preventative maintenance that we're talking about today, stuff that homeowners can do themselves a lot of the time, or any of the dock companies can do, is to fix or upgrade the anchoring before it breaks. This is one of the things that we try to really talk to our customers about, because it's a lot different than if you wait till your decking gets older and older and older. It's not, tomorrow your decking's not going to be gone and shot. But if you wait for your cables to break, then your dock's either going to be up, against the shore, into the neighbor's dock, floating down the lake. So I don't recommend waiting until it's too late on the anchoring. It's much better if you go ahead, if you see a cable getting rusted or frayed, if you see a spud pole that's really getting, rusted out and thin, to go ahead and replace it before it's too late. Because this time of year, like even today, the wind starts kicking up. A lot of people aren't visiting their lake homes in the wintertime, or they're not going down to the dock, so that it's out of sight, out of mind. And so having the anchoring safe and secure is important, especially this time of year, because we get sustained winds. It's not so much boat traffic, but the sustained winds will really wreak havoc on the anchoring. And so that's just the little things you can do. A lot of homeowners can replace cables themselves before they break. It's much easier to do that while you still have control of the dock versus when it's swinging around. I'm pretty sure all the dock companies sell cables, cable clamps that you can buy. And when it comes to replacing the poles, that's one thing I do recommend hiring a company to do, only because it's a cumbersome task, it's dangerous, and it should be handled by a professional. And so it's a common thing that all the dog companies we're set up or equipped to remove the old pole, get it, off the lake bed, get it, on our boat so we can haul it off and dispose of it, install the new poles. Same thing on the cables. We can handle all that. Winches as well. So that's the other thing, leading into the cables and the poles are the winches on your dock. You get these old winches and you've seen them. The locks go bad on them. And so you'll see people tie ropes around the handles to keep them from free spinning. And so that I don't like living on the edge that much. And so if you can go ahead, replace those, they can either be bolted on or welded on. And then same goes for the eye bolts or pulleys, which really take a stress off of the winch. We highly recommend adding a pulley system to the shoreline system. And so those are just little things, regarding the anchoring that you can do. The biggest thing though is just don't wait till it's too late. If you see the cable getting rusted or the pole bad, take the appropriate steps to go ahead and replace it while it's still good, versus making it an emergency. And so, Jennifer, did you
What
have?
would you say? What would you say is kind of the typical lifespan of either cables or just your anchoring system in general?
So that's a great question. So, going into more detail of the anchoring, we really, Marine Specialties, we really try to offer top-notch products. And when I say that, I mean products that are going to last. And of course, you can save money going with galvanized cable, but stainless steel cable, although it is more expensive, you tend to get a much longer lifespan. As far as a lifespan, what it would be, it really depends if it's how well it's maintained. I'll say if you actively maintain your dock and move it, keep it moved in and out properly, and the cable's adjusted properly, a stainless steel cable under normal wear and tear should easily last, 10, 15 plus years. A galvanized cable, it can last that long, as long as it's maintained. But if it is left in the water for any length of time, you're going to see the rust. And even, just in the elements, you'll see rust on galvanized cables. So that's on the cable. Then on the spud poles, we do a lot of galvanized poles. We also do a lot of just regular steel poles. I mean, steel poles we've seen, under normal wear and tear last, 15, 20 plus years. Same thing on the galvanized. They're about, right there in that same range. The galvanized may last a few years longer. I don't recommend stainless steel poles. They tend to be more problematic than they help. And the cost of them is just, it's not worth it. But the galvanized and steel poles really are, they're right there in that same ballpark of how long they would last.
If somebody has poles and cables, how tight should they keep their cables? Do they have to keep them at a different tension with both systems in place?
Absolutely. It's another great question. So when it comes to a dock with cables only, you're relying on the gangway to butt into the shoreline stairs or the shoreline to act as an anchor point. And so you don't want to tighten the cables back to shore. Basically what I tell, customers is you don't want to tighten them as tight as you can physically. You can end up damaging your shoreline stairs, the frame of your boat dock where the gangway connects. You're just putting too much stress on it. It has to have a little bit of, not slack, but I always tell customers, you don't want it, what I would say, as tight as a piano string, but you do want it, just hand tight, not as tight as you can get it. So it's a tricky, medium there as far as where it should be. But it also goes to the lake level, so when lake levels change, the anchoring has to be adjusted. I mean, it's not just because you're in deep water and your dock doesn't need to move out. When the lake level drops or comes up, your cables ashore should be adjusted. And same goes for the poles.
Do you have any tips for like a newbie dealing with moving their dock in and out in terms of something they can do? How can they make it easier on themselves if they're doing it themselves?
Yeah, but that's a good question, and there are a lot of do-it-yourselfers out there, and I respect that because I'm one of them myself around my own house. Um, the biggest thing is just to make sure that your anchoring is up to par, and that it's safe, because there's nothing more dangerous if you don't know what you're doing than messing with a spud pole winch, because I've seen customers, I've had employees get injured from the winch handle spinning if you don't know what you're doing. Same thing goes for the shoreline cables. So it's not something that I would just recommend a new person. That they can always, a new person doing it should give a dock company a call and maybe, or talk to their neighbor how they've been doing it, because it's not an everyday thing, and so yeah, it's the safety end is the biggest thing. A lot of people will try to save a buck here or two, but it can come back to bite you. And so I highly recommend either talking to a professional or a neighbor that's experienced and try to get that knowledge, but making sure that the systems and mechanisms are safe and up to date. That just makes your life easier. You don't have to think twice about it. So that's a good question.
Well, thank you, Kyle, so much.
Yeah,
I really
no problem.
appreciate your time, and we're going to have you back on when we do our question and answers at the end. So now we're going to thank you. We're going to transition over to Patrick Morrissey with Southeastern Dock Supply, and Colleen. Hi, how are
Hey,
y'all?
Jennifer. Thank you for having us today.
Yes, thank you so much for being on with us. I really do appreciate it. So Patrick is the owner and operations manager of Southeastern Dock Supply and has been in the industry for many years. You want to tell us about that?
That's correct. We're a third generation family owned business. Colleen's my sister here. We're the co-owners of Southeastern Dock Supply. Our grandfather had started the business, so I've pretty much been doing dock work since I was a little kid, getting my hands dirty with grandpa and my father, redecking docks and doing boat lifts and jet ski port installs since I was in middle school. So as soon as I graduated college, I knew I wanted to get into the family business, and my sister and I teamed up to create Southeastern Dock Supply and grow the family business.
Wonderful. Well, today let's start by talking about flotation. So Patrick, y'all are one of the companies that were integral in helping get floats off the lake for shore sweep. And so is everybody else, all of the companies represented here. And we really do thank you for all of the efforts that you have done with shore sweep and since then. And so how many floats would you say that y'all took off during the event? I mean, or like dock parts?
We had about 4 workboats out there, and I'd say each crew probably brought back at least 3 different loads, as much as they could fill on the boat and tie up with ropes to drag back. It was definitely more than we anticipated, and honestly quite sad to see all the trash that's been left on the lake, but we're glad we could do our part to help keep the lake safe for everyone.
I mean, all of the docks on the Lake Lanier are floating docks. Why do you think that there's so many floats that are just randomly on the shores of Lake Lanier?
Part of it could be the way some people have the type of float they're using and the way they're mounting them to the docks. I know some floats are using lag bolts to lag directly into the float, which over time could come loose. When we do our float installation, we use a J-hook hardware where it sandwiches the outside of the float and pinches it tight. This way you're not puncturing your float. It's not allowing it to get waterlogged by having that hole in the float. And it's a little bit more secure. You also want to make sure you're using enough hardware per float. I've seen some guys just put some floats where there's just 2 lag bolts or 2 bolts on opposite corners on the float, where we try and get at least 1 on every corner of a float. So you got at least 4 points of attachment on each float. So, attaching could be one main reason. I know there are some people who could be some do-it-yourselfers, could be some smaller companies who aren't disposing properly. Personally, I haven't seen that myself where I could point any fingers or anything. I just know that could be one of the issues out there. We want to make sure that although it is a dock company's responsibility, I feel like it is customers' responsibility as well to make sure that the company they're hiring is disposing of all their material properly and taking it to the dump site it needs to be going to.
We've actually put that out in some of Lake Lanier Association's communications of, saying mark your floats with orange spray paint or something that make sure you get a photo like showing that these things were taken off the lake and it's, on the back of a flatbed or however they're going to remove it.
Exactly. And if we ever have a customer ask us, we'll be happy to take some photos of it, loading it on the trailer at the boat ramp and getting a picture of it at the dump site. I mean, most dump sites here, even on our invoices, have a picture of our trailer up above. A lot of the dump sites here send a picture to us on our invoice when we pay that dump bill. So it just takes the girls in our office just a second to forward that over to our customers if they ask.
Is there anything else that anyone can do to help like prevent losing a float?
I would just say making sure you have the proper flotation underneath your dock. Making sure it's secure. You have enough hardware on each float. If you see any wiggling loose, it is a good idea to go through and tighten them down. Ours are J hooks, and we use nylon nuts on all of our floats. I've seen some who don't use nylon nuts, so you might want to make sure go through those nuts every once in a while and make sure they're tight and all your floats are secure under there.
Okay. What
I'd
is the
say
pro- So go ahead.
I'm sorry. I'd say on standard, you want to make sure you have somewhere between 6 to 10 inches of flotation between the water level and the bottom of your framework. That being said, it's mainly to help prevent rust, especially on a steel dock. If you have less than 6 inches between the water and your bottom framework, you're going to get some wave action splashing up, water continuously hitting your framework. And I know Craig showed some pictures of you see the frame bending and rusting and breaking. Part of that could be due to not enough flotation where your frame's just in the water way too much.
So is that like the number of floats that is under your dock, or is it the quality of those if they've like started to take on water and
It's definitely more the quality of them. Quantity can definitely vary depending on the size float you're using. And you don't always want to replace with what was currently under there. We'll have some customers call us and give us a list of what floats they need. And, I always tell them, well, we'll come out and do a free estimate. Let us take a look at it. Because just because somebody did it one way doesn't mean it's necessarily the correct way. I highly suggest having a professional come out and taking a look at the dock and letting them quote you how they think would be best instead of replacing just what was under there.
okay. So this past week we discussed one of your customers who had an old dilapidated swim platform come up
Yes,
to
ma'am.
their dock, and y'all graciously took that away for them, and also picked up some other shore sleep debris, which we really thank you for.
Yes, ma'am.
When we go back to dock disposal, kind of what is that proper way for disposal of the old floats and docks? We kind of touched on it, but what do people need to kind of keep in mind?
Again, just make sure that you're getting the right professional out there. Wouldn't hurt, like you were saying, to get pictures and everything. The Corps has sites for us dock builders to use to take the docks to where we can use our machinery to tear down the dock properly and take it off to the dump. Mainly it's just, the customers making sure, keeping their contractor reliable, providing pictures and everything, showing them it getting torn apart, not being left anywhere. Like you said, one of our dock watch customers that we go to every other week had a swim platform float up to his dock, and there was no dock permit on it. Somebody just left it on the lake. Our crew wasn't sure where it came from, so they tied it off to his dock to keep it from floating off on the lake. We gave the customer a call. He said it wasn't his and wanted us to be able to get rid of it for him. So we tried giving him an estimate to be fair, and obviously it wasn't his dock, so he wasn't going to pay for it. So we just decided to do the right thing and take it to the dump and not charge him anything for it and do our part to help keep the lake clean.
Thank you. So shifting subjects over to electricity, you want to
Yes, ma'am.
go there. So what should people be concerned about in terms of electricity in their dock and
Electricity is definitely a big issue. There's been a lot of deaths and accidents from electrical wires being loose and currents going through the lake. I know most likely almost every dock company out there sells some sort of device that can test for electrical current. I know Shock IQ is one of the bigger companies out there doing it right now. And it's just a small little box on your dock that has a pole that goes in the water to test for any current. I highly recommend that to almost every customer out there. You can never be too safe, especially with kids around. If it senses any type of current at all, it's going to go off with a loud buzzer so you know that there's a current in the water. It's definitely important to make sure during your core inspections and everything that you're keeping up with your electrician to come out and make sure everything's in good condition and approved. And yeah, it's definitely want to make sure that you have everything proper there with electrical. It's nothing you want to mess around with.
Well, we'd hoped to have an electrician on, and we weren't able to get schedules going. But I've heard kind of as you move your docks around and as wakes happen throughout the year that it can, mess with the conduit a little bit, and it can create places where water can enter and create problems. Have you, as y'all are moving people's docks around, have y'all experienced any things with, either shock from another dock that's like further up or anything along those lines?
Our crew definitely has before come across it. I've gotten calls from our crew saying, hey, I can feel a tingle in the water, and we try and get them out of the water and get them off that site until we can get an electrician out there. Our company, we don't have certified electricians. We sub everything out. So if there's any sort of danger, we call our subcontractor on the electrician out there right away. We notify all the neighbors. And like I said, the Shock IQ really is probably one of the best systems for a lot of these people to have on their dock to make sure they're safe. But I do see what you're saying where the conduit could crack and break. So it doesn't hurt to give everything a good walkthrough. During our dock watch maintenance that we do every week for our customers, our crews inspect the entire dock, and electrical is something they look down the ramp, make sure they don't see anything wrong with it. So even if you're not there all the time, it's always smart to have a professional on that dock watch contract, just giving your dock a once over every week for you.
And that way they're doing that inspection and able to see. So after that, do they then, let you know if they do see issues or problems?
Correct. So our crew won't fix any issues right away. We're going to get the customer's approval on everything. Our crew will go out there and they upload all of their pictures of anything they see that's an issue. They upload it to our project management system where the girls in our office will receive it. And our lead estimator will take a look at that with them to work them up an estimate and say, hey, during your dock watch session this week, our crew noticed this crack in your conduit here, which could be a concern. Here's a quote for if you want us to fix it, let us know. So we try and stay on top of any issue and get our customers a quote right away if we see any problem. And we typically try and rate it on a scale of 1 to 10 for the customers. Obviously, if it's something with electrical, we're going to rate that a 10 out of 10, let them know it's urgent, need to get it fixed right away. If it's something small like a broken board on the deck, that's nothing that they have to worry about, maybe rated a 2 out of 10, tell them they might want to think about replacing that sometime soon.
Okay. Well, thank you, Patrick. We're gonna transition over to Chris, and then we'll come back. We have lots of good questions, and a lot of the ones that came through. I think we're gonna do a little bit, kind of get some various opinions on them. So we're gonna hold on to those. But thank you very much. We appreciate it.
Sounds great. Thank you again.
Oh, thank you. Okay, so as Chris comes on, next up we have Chris with Lighthouse Marine. So Chris Fall is the CEO of Lighthouse and has 50 years of experience in as a building contractor. And so thank you, Chris, for joining us. So just a little slight introduction. Lighthouse Marine was recently, Chris just recently purchased it, and it was amazing services prior to it being Lighthouse Marine. And Chris, let's get you unmuted. Perfect.
Hello.
Hi, how are you?
Good. Thank you for having us, and thank you for putting this on. Pleasure
Yes.
to be here.
Yes, thank you so much for coming. So we've talked about anchoring, we talked about flotation and disposal. What do you see as kind of the main thing when we're talking about dock maintenance? What comes to your head when you hear dock maintenance?
Well, I kind of treat the docks almost like your car. I mean, your car goes in for an oil change, or hopefully so, at a periodic time, you change the tires, you wash the windows, you wash the car, and then the people go out and they use their docks every weekend, but they don't look at the maintenance items on the dock themselves. There's too many moving parts on the dock not to pay attention to them, as Kyle brought up and as Patrick brought up also. I mean, you're dealing with a flotation device that's out on the water. You're all out there to have a good time, but nobody ever really takes the time to do the walk around. So as Patrick brought up very clearly, I think it's important, especially a lot of the lake owners are just property owners and up on the weekend, that they hire one of the companies here to go out and do a maintenance check on their docks for them so we can maintain, because I'm sure we all could tell horror stories of the docks we go look at that are beyond repair. And it's just, if they took the time to just take a look at some things and called us ahead of time and did some preventive maintenance themselves, they'd be ahead of the curve for a long stretch of the time.
What are the things, so if somebody wants to go out and just eyeball, I know, again, we have some DIYers and we're not going to have the same eye as you do that's been doing, construction for 50 years, but what are a few kind of like top line things that you should make sure that people are looking at every time they at least like go on their dock?
Well, again, as Kyle brought up initially when he talked about the anchoring system of the dock, I mean, we'll go out and it's like Kyle had brought up, the dock will be tangled up, in a bad situation already because one of the cables broke loose, and then it's a 911 call to whatever dock company can get to them, and all they would have to do is periodically just look at the cables, look at the shoring system, look at how it's attached to the shore. And as the ranger pointed out, there's numerous times you go out and the cables are wrapped around a tree, or we were on one last week that had it wrapped around a boat. Just to try to tie it back. So, all these things that, to me, common sense plays a lot of factor into this, and some of the people don't have that. But again, just hiring the professional to go out and take a look at it, all the winch cables, the pulleys, the eye bolts, the turnbuckles, the anchor poles, the hinge system, the decking, the roof posts, all those items are maintenance items. The docks are never built to last a lifetime. The flotation, as Kyle brought out, will go out and the frame will be in the water. They think the client will say, I think I need some flotation. Well, you're way past needing it. It's, at this point, it's a desperate measure to try to get that out of the water again.
So what are some preventative maintenance things that people could do even for their decking? I know it depends upon specifically what kind of decking they have, but is there anything that people should be doing to ensure that they don't get to that point of?
Well, again, pressure treated decking, again, I've been around the industry for a long time, and certainly a 2x4 is no longer what it used to be, and the 5/4 decking is no longer what it used to be. But pressure treated material also needs to be treated. I mean, you can't really stain it or do anything to it for the first 6 months, but after that, it is a maintenance item. It's a piece of wood laying out in the elements. So you need to take care of it, put some seal or some preservative or something on it. People complain of the old wood decks, of them splintering and coming up, because we'll go out and look at it and there'll just be a dry wood out there you paint your house every 5 or 6 years, you maintain your house, you should be doing the same thing to your dock. You should be maintaining it instead of just relying on the treating in the pressure treated material to last a lifetime. People don't understand that's not there for a lifetime. And the 30-year warranty on most of those products, I'm sorry, you're lucky to get 15 years out of most of those wood products. Now, again, I know at the end we're going to talk about synthetic decking, and everyone calls it Trex, like tissue or Kleenex. There's numerous ones out there, but that is certainly a direction that I would try to steer people into, because they have a 50-year warranty on a lot of those products. And they are maintenance free.
So they don't require nearly as much as wood,
Right.
which is hard to come by these days.
Absolutely.
We'll probably talk about it as well. Is there any telltale signs that like a weld is going to break, or something along those lines?
A lot of the action on the lake, as Kyle briefly mentioned, depends on where you are located on Lake Lanier, or where your boat dock is. We deal with a lot of docks that are on the main channel that get high wave action. And again, just as others have touched on, we recommend a double double anchoring system with a pole and an anchor, and maybe doubling up on the anchor cables back just in case one breaks. But again, it depends upon location, what you should be looking for. Main channel is suspect to all those high waves. I mean, a lot of the bigger boats, the wakeboarders, et cetera, are destroying the shorelines and certainly destroying some of the docks.
Mhm.
So what to look for as far as a weld about to be broken, I don't really know of any telltale signs except when it finally happens. I would look at corners in different locations where there are stress points on it. And to Patrick's point about, screwing through the frame and stuff, kind of weakens it. So if you have a dock where the floats are screwed through the frame, every once in a while, just like a car, you got to peek under the hood. So every once in a while, you got to get down on your dock and look under your dock where the floats are attached just to make sure that everything is fine.
So it's kind of, and if people don't want to do that, there's plenty of companies out there who can help them
Absolutely.
doing that, either on the dock watch or annual maintenance inspections. This is not a sales webinar, but throw it out there to everybody. Anything else that you want to add, Chris?
No, again, I mean, we're all here to help. All the dock companies are here. And again, I certainly appreciate everyone being here. And again, you can reach out to any of us, after the webinar here and just reach out to questions if we don't answer them here today on the panel. But again, Jennifer, thank you so much. And thank you for the Corps and everybody else being here.
Thank you. Thank you, Chris, so much. We really appreciate it. And thank you for all your help on shore sweep. I think you told me that you took off, y'all in a couple boats took off, what, 30 floats, something?
Yes,
along
ma'am.
those lines?
Yes, ma'am. We have fun doing it. It was a good time. Now, again, just trying to keep the lake clean and be part of it. So we certainly appreciate our effort out there with our crew.
Well, thank you. Thank you. Okay, well, we're going to transition over to Matt Fuller with Boat Dock Works, and he is in our office, and I hope that the internet is currently working there. We've had some issues. Okay. All right. Thanks, Matt, for joining us. So Matt Fuller with Boat Dock Works. Matt is the dock repair supervisor and has 11 years of experience in this field. Thank you so much, Matt, for joining us.
Hey, no, thank you for allowing me to be on. And, I just want to say we appreciate LLA for everything y'all do, from the shore sweep to the life jackets and everything else y'all do across Lanier. Y'all are awesome.
Well, thank you. And thanks for all y'all's support as well. So there's a lot that can go into owning a dock, especially, depending upon what location you are in, if you're in a high wake location. Or where your dock needs to be moved a lot. So what in your mind is the most important thing that people need to be concerned about when it comes to like dock ownership?
I'm sorry, you were breaking up on me. I apologize.
What in your mind is the most important thing that people need to be concerned about when it comes to dock ownership?
I think safety is a big key, kind of go into what Craig was saying, really, dock owners really need to go out and just do their part and, just inspect the dock, on a weekly basis, to prevent any kind of docks from breaking free or, potentially damaging, another dock or situations like that, so that's kind of where I'm at, with that situation for sure.
So in terms of safety and making sure it's kind of anchoring, and is there safety concerns in terms of like people utilizing your dock or other things from a maintenance standpoint that you should think about?
Yeah, just like what Kyle and, the Patrick and Chris have kind of talked about, anchoring is a big thing with the docks, like I said, from a safety standpoint, just really hiring a dock company to come out and, check the dock out. And, a lot of times, just calling a dock company, they'll definitely be more than happy to just come out and just check the dock out, without charging you anything, just a simple inspection, and definitely having a professional out there, I think is key to, you know, just being safe on Lanier for sure, especially with the dock owner. And, you know, the resources and everything else that are on Lanier.
What is the most common question or issue that you come across? What do people call you about? What do you see out there that's the most common problem?
You know, common problem, you know, is just, you know, dock structure, flotation, is a common question. You know, a lot of people are, you know, like Chris was saying, you know, moving towards, you know, the decking material, you know, what'll really last, what can you get your money's worth out of, you know, over the next, you know, 10 to 20 years, kind of moving forward. You know, those are all kind of pretty common questions that I get asked.
Um, so in terms of, maintenance, one of the things we discussed, was dock owner responsibility. And, this kind of ties back to Lake Lanier Association's derelict and abandoned dock program. And so when we say derelict, that could be subjective. We're not talking about ugly docks. Those are going to be out there, but we're really talking about the ones that really create hazards for swimmers and boaters. And that goes back to a lot of what we discussed with the flotation issues or, docks floating away. Another thing we have is like completely sinking docks. If somebody does have a dock that they are unable to, refurbish and it's at the end of life, and it goes back to, removing it, what are people's options? Or if they want to give away a dock, what are options for people if they want to get a new dock?
You know, definitely, you know, going back to what Craig was saying, you know, you definitely want to get somebody, you know, a contractor that is going to dispose of the dock properly. You know, I guess going back to, you know, having a dock company come out there and actually, you know, like I said, inspect the dock and see if it is salvageable or it needs to be disposed of. You know, from there, you know, kind of start moving forward with, you know, getting the dock properly disposed of, you know, or, you know, kind of moving forward with a new dock, you know, that kind of follows your permit, you know, kind of moving forward with that.
Okay. Well, thank you, Matt. We are running up at the end of our time, so I do want to pull everybody back up and do some of those questions and answers to our panel. Thank you so much for joining us today, and sorry about the bad internet connection.
No, that's all right. Thank you for having me.
Thanks for working through it. Okay, so I'm going to pull up some of these questions and we will go through them. Somebody had asked how they can get in contact with their area ranger directly. I know that we have that listed on Lake Lanier Association's website. Craig, is it on y'all's website? Or how can they find that?
No, not yet. The best place to go at the moment, if you're looking on the computer, is to go to the Lanier Association website and find the map there. And the map has the email and phone number for the area ranger.
And we are currently at 6 areas, correct?
Yes.
We were 4 areas previously, and it's 6, which is great because it's a fully staffed lake and inspection crews. So that I'm sure is helping y'all out immensely in getting to everything. Okay, so I've already answered that one. Tell me about supply chain right now. What is that looking like for y'all? We don't have Chris. What is that looking like for y'all? And is it causing any backups or problems?
I can talk real quick. Yeah, obviously, I think the supply chain across, you know, the world, not just in our business, has been backed up, and it tends to be certain items. It's not everything, and so it's certain items. It could be floats, or you know, harder to get. You can still get them. It's longer lead times. It can be, you know, other certain accessories or items that are hard to get, but a lot of it revolves around the other product. So, you know, you're waiting on one product to go with another product. And so you can't install the product you want to without all the components. And so it does create just frustration, both on our end and on the, customer's end. I get it. I'm the same way. In today's world, we're so everything's instant, and so what we've experienced lately has been difficult, but I think things are starting to get better a little bit, but who knows what we'll see in 2022. But it's just patience. Everybody's got to have patience right now. That's the only thing I can stress. And that's it also goes back to, go ahead and get on the schedule, go ahead and do the preventative maintenance now. Don't wait, because you might not be able to get that part or that product that you thought you could just call up and get right away. So yeah, being proactive really helps in these situations.
Anyone else want to chime in?
Like Kyle was saying, there's definitely been a delay this year. Since COVID, there's a lot more people who aren't at their full-time resident lake house or spending more time there now. So there's been a lot more people trying to get more work done to their lake houses in these past couple of years. There's definitely a lot more demand, and as Kyle was saying, a lot of the products are here, but there are some that go along with other products where it's delaying it. Every dock company, I think, gets that call that week before 4th of July. Somebody needs their whole dock redone before they have their party. So as Kyle was saying, it is very important that they try and get ahead of their schedule and call a dock company to get on their schedule ahead of time and make sure they're being proactive in that.
Is there a minimum height between the dock surface and the water that you want to see relating to the bad floats?
Personally, we try and aim somewhere between 6 to 10 inches. If you're on the lower side, I would say it's definitely time to get a refloat or change out a couple floats there. But if you're somewhere around that 6 to 10 inches, I'd say you're fairly good. And when I say 6 to 10 inches, that's going to be from your water line to the bottom of your framework, not to the top of your decking.
Does that change if you're in high wake areas?
Not necessarily. I would say high wake area, you're going to get more traffic. There's going to be more wave water splashing up in that frame, especially on steel docks, causing that to rust out. So you would want to be closer to the 10-inch height if you're in a high traffic area. No matter what, though, as the higher up you can get out of the water, it's going to be better. It's going to have longer lifespan on your steel work, have those welds last a lot longer, and not have to worry about replacing any of your framework.
So in terms of decking materials, I'm going to ask Craig first. Craig, is there any decking materials that are not allowed on docks?
Oh, I wish you'd ask the other way around. I'm sure, yes. I wasn't really prepared for that question, but in the interim, I did look back at the plan, and the plan, the shoreline management plan, only speaks to wood, so pressure treated wood and metal. I totally understand the conversation now shifting to composite materials for the longer lifespan. I honestly don't know where we stand permitting wise on any other material other than wood or metal, but the metal needs to be slip resistant.
So I don't know if I want to go on and ask, like, what is the best decking material of concrete or?
Well, I would love to hear from the professionals on here that do this every day. I mean, what's their recommendation? What are they seeing? I mean, that helps us. I mean, they're in the business every day.
Yeah.
We can write rules and regulations, and hopefully they make sense. But sometimes we've got to ask questions about, what makes sense. So I would love to hear from everybody else on that issue.
Can I speak to that issue?
Go ahead, Chris.
Again, my building contracting background, again, I've been building for about 50 years. So again, the older material that used to be old school pressure treated material came about, and pressure treated was the answer for your outdoor products. And now all the synthetics have come out, and the synthetics have certainly grown across the industry, and they've improved every year, and different products have come out. We offer a product that is not only synthetic and has a 50-year warranty, but it's actually cool decking. So it's cooler to the touch, so people can walk out on their docks in the sun and it be cool to their bare feet. Some of the decking you find at some of the marinas around, isn't that product, and it's very hot for people to walk on. And you see people walking on hot stones across there. But with having a 50-year manufacturer warranty from them, as Matt spoke about, it's certainly better for a client longevity to invest the little bit of extra money that it costs between the pressure treated material and any of the synthetics are on the market.
Any thoughts? We've kind of talked, one of the big things that are, of course, there's a lot more concerns. We're getting larger storms on Lake Lanier. We're getting larger vessels on Lake Lanier, a lot of additional boat traffic, docks that previously did not experience as much wakes and waves. They are now, one of the things that we're seeing come out is like some concrete decking. What are thoughts on that and the positives and negatives of going that route?
Again, some of the concrete decking is a heavier decking unless they're using a lightweight concrete. Again, familiar with some of those products. And then we be back into Patrick's speech about flotation. Because the more flotation we got to try to put underneath the docks, and then the flotation, and it's going to have to do with the height of the deck. Off the water wouldn't be comfortable to step on your boat. So some of the heavier decking products that are coming out, like when you're building a house, they came out with the composite siding or the concrete siding that's available. It makes things a whole lot heavier. So I'd be hesitant myself personally to use any of the concrete decking, unless the dock was set up to float with the flotation to take on that extra weight. You couldn't redeck an existing dock with concrete decking without refloating it, because it's not set up to carry that additional weight.
I'd say even going from pressure treated to composite, a lot of people may not realize that composite it's a lot heavier than the pressure treated. So when you're getting a quote to redeck your whole dock going from a pressure treated to a composite, you're most likely going to need a few floats under your dock, and your contractor should be putting those floats in your estimate when they're giving you that. So don't be surprised if you're getting an estimate for just an upgrade from pressure treated to composite, that there are going to have to be some extra expenses for flotation to counter that extra weight on your dock.
Any other thoughts? I don't want to cut anybody off. Those are great.
So I have a question about the sag in the composite. So I've seen a composite used as a bench in a upper deck system, and it didn't have any support underneath it, and there's a lot of sag. Is there any concern about having to add anything structural underneath the composite decking to prevent sag?
The composite decking that we offer comes in a 2x decking also to span like you're talking about, where the bench or something, we would use a 2x material, which is the same thickness as a 2x4. Now, I've seen some out there where they've used the composites and they've used the 5/4 board, which isn't meant to span any more than 16 inches. So even some of the redecks that we have to do, we just did one, and it was on 24 centers. So we had to wait for the 2x material to put on the lower section of this gentleman's dock. Now, it is on a back order item because of COVID. It did take, I think it took 14 weeks to get that product. And to Patrick's point, on the upper section, we typically use a lighter material, a 5/4 material. But again, extra flotation on all those is going to be required. But they do make a 2x. To answer your question, one of the manufacturers that we use does make a 2x material and will span for benches and stuff.
So I've had a question of asking, like, what's the cost for dock disposal? And we don't really want to go into cost here because it's very dependent upon the dock that's being disposed, what it's made of, and how large it is. Is that a correct answer to that question?
Yes.
Yeah, I can speak into that, Jennifer. So the dock disposals, It's become a hot topic over the last several years. My biggest recommendation is each company prices things different, but no matter who you go with, you have to make sure that you're hiring a reputable company, and B, that all the documentation is there. We take photos of everything, we document everything, provide the customer with all of that. Because what we've seen, unfortunately, is, with the economy doing so well in these last few years, we've got these fly-by-night guys out there, and we don't name names, but they're out there, and, they'll tell a customer they'll do the dog disposal for half of what, one of these companies may have quoted. And next thing you know, the Lake Lanier Association is got themselves a dock in the back of a cove, and and then it becomes, that issue and that problem. So it's unfortunate, but the biggest thing is just to make sure that you're hiring a reputable company, that the documentation's there, and you can't go wrong doing that. But prices do vary. It's case by case. I can't give you a price over the phone even without really looking at the dock and looking at the logistics that's going to take to get rid of it.
A couple, we're running out, sorry. Let me say something. Okay, we're running out of time, so I just want to just answer a few really quickly. So one question was, what do you do? How do you dispose of floats that wash up in between shore sweep? And what we always tell people is your options are to call all of you and hire you all to remove that float, or you can tie it up and wait until shore sweep. We are hopefully long-term trying to find some solutions for some ongoing float disposal efforts, though COVID did slow those down, but we are trying to work on that because we recognize that issue. And then if somebody observes what might be a dangerous situation on a dock or a boat docked in it, how can they communicate that with the owner or whoever else? I will say you can communicate that with Lake Lanier Association, and we'll pass it along to the Corps or the DNR, depending upon the situation. There is no public list in terms of dock owners and who owns what. There is, of course, public records for property owners that you can always go on and find those. That is public in the county systems, but you can always give that to us and we will pass that along if you do see any dangerous situations. Is there a current published list of the dock builders on Lake Lanier? I know that there is an older one that is published on the Corps of Engineers website, and there's been some talk of trying to update that, and I believe that that is in the works to try to get a more updated list on that. So this one's for Craig. If somebody, it's kind of specific, but I'll ask anyway. If somebody's in your permitted location and won't move, what do they do?
They don't really have a choice other than to work with the Corps to get that dock moved back to where it's permitted to be. It is personal property, so one individual does not have the right to move another individual's personal property. So they don't have a choice other than to work with their area ranger and identify who the person is that's in the wrong spot and get them moved back to the right location.
So where can they find the latest version of the shoreline management plan on your website?
So it is on our website. If you go to our main page on the right-hand side, there's a column of links. You'll go to shoreline management, and then once on the shoreline management page, it should say 2004 SMP.
One last question to this group, and then we'll be done because I've already kept you over. Does the lake need to be down to install riprap, which is not dock, but it goes along shoreline and stairs and all that kind of stuff?
The answer is yes. Pretty straightforward answer. I mean, the answer is yes. And I'm sure, the other guys can agree with me. We can only do so much and our hands are tied by the lake levels, unfortunately. And we've been blessed with, I'll say, great weather patterns here these last few years, but it's a double-edged sword, of course, with schedules and certain jobs. Some jobs, the topography is different. And so when the lake's full, they can be done because their shoreline is a little bit different, but others that are in, different spots, yeah, we need the lake down.
Well, thank you all so much for joining us. I really do appreciate it. And we had a lot of really great information that we're able to share with everybody. The questions that are still unanswered, I'm going to type up those answers and put them at the back end of this presentation. There's a few that are left, so we will not leave you hanging. We will go make sure everything is answered. And the video of the presentation will be sent out to everybody, barring any technical difficulties, tomorrow. So again, thank you so much, Craig, Chris, Kyle, Patrick, Matt, for being a part of this webinar today. Y'all are all wonderful partners of Lake Lanier Association, and we really do thank you for everything that you are doing. Everyone who is watching, thank you also for taking your time to learn about all of this dock maintenance, which is really important. We've had 85 tons of trash taken off the lake this year on shore sweep, and 80 tons the year before, and 80 tons the year before that, and a lot of it is dock debris. And so if we can start to try to get a handle on this and do what we can, that will really go a long way for the lake's health, making sure it's clean, full, and safe. We're putting together our plans for our 2022 webinars. If anybody has any ideas for what they'd like to hear, please reach out and let us know, and we'll put together some great presentations. You can email us at lakeinfo@lakelanier.org. And then I'll also have all the contact information for all of our panelists as well at the end of our webinar. So thank you, everybody, for joining us. We really appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Bye now.
Jennifer.